My name is Sue Hartung. This is a new experiment doing it this way, so bear with us. Okay, I'm a member of the Advocacy for the Foundation. This is Amy Young. She's another member. And when Sue and Beth get back here, they're the other two members on the committee. We want to talk to you today about advocacy. We know that the hardest part, no one understands how challenging your life is raising a child with a disability. No one understands except other families in your boat. And we're all in your boat, okay, the same boat. We know that among all of you here, at least one of you is probably fighting for medical advocacy once a day, or you're fighting for the right school placement, or you're fighting just to make sure that resources aren't cut from the next upcoming budget. So, having said that, this is Beth, our first speaker on medical advocacy.
All right, be a medical advocate. Don't be like her. That's next. All right. I say, be polite. Be says it all. Do no harm, but take no bold. And I think you know what that means. Next. Get used to change, because everything changes. What's true now, 10 years from now, won't be true. Learn to live with it. It's true. Is it not true?
It is.
It is. And nobody wants to have to fight for what you need. Nobody wants. Okay, yeah, I am. Okay. Nobody wants to fight. But it's your child, and you're the only one that's going to do what you need to do. And it's hard. So sometimes you need to strap on your boots and do hard things because it's right. But give yourself some grace, because you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Nobody can. So pick your battles. It's okay. And this is just a little thing that one of the parents here gave me as an example. It's something that she sends with her child every time he needs to go to a doctor. Sometimes she can't bring him. Sometimes it's somebody else. Sometimes a different doctor comes in. So she has printed all this out. And the whole point of this is that you need to be really good with your paperwork, and you need to be always prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. And I liked what she said. I thought of this because I was going to end up in jail for having to repeat myself every time I went to the hospital, every hospital visit. And then this is just, life is more about appreciation than acquisition. And I think we have to think about that more. Let's just appreciate what you have. Don't always be thinking about what you might be going to be trying to have. We've been given a gift. Our children are gifts, and we need to appreciate that. Oh, and the little story that I wanted to tell is about when he was about 23 years old. He needed to be admitted to the hospital, and he needed to be admitted to the hospital far away, nowhere near home. So I had no support, no help. And to my horror, it was the first time he wasn't allowed into pediatrics. So he was put on a trauma floor, and it was horrible. They were afraid of him. The nursing staff was afraid of him, because I don't know why they were. And then they expected that his father and I were going to be his nurses. And we didn't really know what to do about it, and we didn't do much about it. We were just kind of in shock, and we got through the week. It was awful. He had a lot of trauma as a result. He was on the right floor, the trauma floor. And actually, we did too. We all had PTSD after that particular hospitalization. Oh, so anyway, what I learned from that is that I needed to advocate, because what am I doing wrong? Okay, now it's all right. I'll hold it. I needed to do a better job. He's an adult. When he became an adult, his life changed, and I needed to change with it, and he needed to Actually, his pediatrician told us, well, she wasn't a pediatrician at that time, to ask for geriatric floor and to ask to not be his nurse, and we had to advocate for extra staff in the hospital every time he is admitted. Anyway,
Education. All of our kids qualify for an IEP. All of our kids qualify for special education services in school. That said, how it starts is in different ways. You can write a letter to your school district and ask for a full psychoeducational assessment. Include all of the areas that you want assessed, besides cognitive, the academic, PT, OT, speech, ABA, whatever it is you want, include that in the letter. The process then starts. The district will respond to your letter. They have 10 days to respond. Next slide. They typically will respond with doing a student study team meeting, a student support meeting. It's an SST acronym, but they do a meeting and ask you why you want this assessment, why you think. If your child is already in school, the teacher will be there too. If not, it's you and the administration. And you tell them exactly, have any documentation, stories, anything to document why you need this assessment. At that point, you are usually given the assessment plan to sign, and then the process starts. The district has 60 days to do that special education assessment from the date you sign it. Whether it takes them 5 days to pass it on to their personnel, it's a 60-day calendar. The only time that calendar stops is if there's a vacation for more than 5 school days. Then the calendar stops and restarts. But then you have an IEP meeting at that 60 days. And that's when Amy, my dear friend, the advocate, comes in.
Hello, I'm Amy. So thank you, Sue. So yes, once you have that second meeting, that's when you would determine eligibility. And there are 13 different eligibility classifications that you can receive. You receive one of the 13. Speech and language, autism, there's a list of them. But once you go through the checklist with the school team and determine which classification your child would fall under, that's when you would develop an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan. You have regular meetings with the school when you have this IEP. You have check-ins, you get progress reports. Every year you get a new IEP. Every 3 years you get a new set of evaluations to determine continued eligibility. But as an advocate, something that I do, that I encourage lots of families to reach out to a local advocate if you can, is that I'm there to, my role with my clients is I'm there to be a second set of eyes to make sure that these families and these children are getting everything that they deserve from the school district. Oftentimes schools aren't forthcoming with all the resources that they may have in order to help better your child's educational well-being. And so as an advocate, I can dig a little deeper. I can ask the tough questions. I can be the voice for the family where maybe they get emotional in the meeting. I can be strong-willed. And it's been really helpful for a lot of my clients so far. Sometimes I like to say that every advocate has their own way. I'm not necessarily a bulldog in meetings. I'm more of a kill them with kindness type of thing. But we do end up getting what the child needs in the end, whether we have to just sit in an IEP meeting, go to a mediation, or in some cases the family has had to go to due process, and in that case I would recommend a lawyer. But you guys are your child's best advocate at first, and then it's always okay to ask for a second set of eyes to have somebody there with you. Speaking of mediation,
I am a retired special education teacher. I taught special day class, did resource specialist for 39 and a half years before I retired a couple years ago. When my daughter got ready to enter the school district at 5 years old and had her psychoeducational assessment, she had not one word in her vocabulary. She couldn't even say her name. She had 2 sounds. And the school district presented the IEP. They offered as PT. They offered as adapted PE. They offered as occupational therapy. They offered as 0 speech therapy, and told us speech therapy would be a part of her classroom program. And a child who can't even say their name, that's not acceptable. I'm sorry. You're going to give my child speech therapy. She's getting private therapy outside. That's my choice. But the school district needs to give her therapy. So we had a second meeting. And at that point, they said, trust us. And my husband said, well, you could become a ski instructor in Vail, Colorado next year. Who am I going to trust then? And that you don't trust them. I mean, there's no way. So we got angry and I said, mediation. So we go to mediation. And the very first mediation meeting, trust us, we'll work this out after summer. We'll get this in place before the school year starts. No, not okay. Sorry, it's not going to work. So the second mediation, we got a state mediator involved because the district was stonewalling us and giving us nothing. And at that point, they offered a speech therapy, but they offered a speech therapy after school at another school site. Now, mind you, she wasn't attending her home school. She was already going to go to kindergarten clear at the other end of the district, 20 minutes from our house. Now we were going to have to transport her somewhere else another 15 minutes, give her speech therapy, and then come home. I said, absolutely not. She's 5 years old. This is not acceptable. So the mediator worked with us. We went back to mediation again. And the district miraculously at that point, to avoid us taking them to court, said, we'll give you speech therapy. And thus we got it. Now, they knew I was a special education teacher. They still didn't offer us anything till we got to that point. I needed an advocate.
I feel like I often need an advocate for Jack, which I don't have yet. But our story is just, it's something that resonates strongly because it just happened a couple years ago. We were living in Connecticut. Jack had an amazing IEP that we worked really hard to get into place. It was beautiful. He had every service you can imagine, including horseback riding privately that was paid for. It was a lovely IEP. We moved to Rhode Island for Jack for this special school, and they basically wanted to take away half of what he had. I had to advocate really hard to try to keep the services that I had worked hard to get him. They fought me. In the end, Barrington Public Schools decided to compensate us from our decrease of services by paying for a very fancy, if you will, private therapeutic session, therapy, what am I trying to say? Napa Center school program up in Boston. So even though we did travel there weekly to get him to this therapy, it's very expensive. And so they covered the cost of it to compensate for the decrease of hours that the school was offering. So sometimes it takes a little bit of a creativity to still get what you need as long as your child is still receiving the therapy.
One of the reasons, if you've seen my postings on our Facebook page, you'll say that NORD is encouraging you to tell your personal stories, to share it with them. That's because they know, as we know, when you speak from your heart, it gets a lot further than when you're quoting facts and figures. I'm not going to go over all of this with you, but you can't open your newspaper or turn on the news with hearing about the cuts to Medicaid. And believe me, trust me, if those cuts go through, we're all in deep trouble. Okay? It could be the return to a lot of institutionalization for some of our children. To give you an idea, right now, there are 711,000 people on the waiting list for home and community-based services for Medicaid, and 73% of those have IDD. In Maryland, we call the individuals who provide support to our children DSPs, direct support professionals. Nationwide, there is a 40% turnover in those positions. That's because what we get paid, what the state and the feds pay us is not enough to afford them a living wage. In my state here in Maryland, the governor released his budget this year and imposed a $440 million cut to the DDA budget. That would have been devastating to us. So we started a huge ramp-up advocacy effort. I was asked to speak to our DD Day at the legislature. That was an audience of 800, which I had never done. Then I was asked to speak to our state budget and appropriations committee, which I had never done. And then I was asked to speak to our county council to ask them for more money in case the state didn't come through. And this is part of what I told them. I have worked in volunteering programs for people with disabilities for 55 years. I have seen the best and the worst of programs. But in 1995, my experience became a very personal one. My son Warren has a rare genetic disorder called KAT6. He cannot speak or take care of himself, and my daughter has autism. And then we have Grant and Matthew who have no disabilities, and caring for every one of them was overwhelming. More than one doctor suggested we consider institutional care for them, but having worked in programs like that, that was not something we consider. At that time, our State Developmental Disability Administration gave Emily and Warren an after-school program they paid for 1 day a week. That meant for the first time, we were able to go to our boys' baseball games without worrying about Emily and Warren's needs or their behavior. And more importantly, Emily and Warren got to go to a program where they got to do something they wanted to do one afternoon a week. Over the next 15 years, that led to more programs, weekends, respite. We were able to be better parents to all 4 of our children because of this support. Today, both Emily and Warren live in they're 35 and 40. They live in their own townhouses in our community, side by side, with a roommate, with staff that support them, and truly love them because they have been with them over 10 years. These services allowed every member of my family to stop surviving and to start thriving. Thanks to JDA, our children are truly part of the fabric of their community. Today, they buy their groceries in our supermarkets, eat in our restaurants, work in our businesses, volunteer in our communities, go to our movie theaters, and help pay their staff salaries. Not a dime of the funds spent on them is wasted, and most of it goes back to enriching our community economy. The life they lead today was not imaginable 35 years ago, and I know because I worked in it. We didn't get all our money back, but we got half of the budget cuts reinstated, and that was a big win. All right, you'll see this posted later on. I have a link here. You can find your state legislatures, national senators, representatives. Nord Evaluate gives your states a report card in 9 areas. You can go look up your state, how they think they're doing, and let them hear your voice. Come up with a boilerplate story that you can tweak for different situations, because that's the name of the game. That's why we're here. Any questions? No questions. Okay.